The hour is upon us at 6 p.m., after 6 a little bit. I'd like to call the meeting of January 10th, 2019 to order. Secretary, please call the roll.
Directors Huang. Here. Akbari. Here. Sethy.
Here.
Weed.
Here.
And Gunther.
Here. Director Huang, will you lead us in the salute to the flag?
To the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's like it's Groundhog Day on New Year's Day.
Like the third time?
The third time. Okay, for the public comments, normally customary, we have a 5-minute limit on it. I understand there may be only one speaker this evening. If you have to go over, that's fine.
Chiefly for items not on the agenda. Yeah, you might have saw the binder and thought that it was going to be like a big, long presentation or something, but it's...
Pull the microphone up.
If you need a little more time, that's fine.
My name is Glenn Rodiger. I'm the president of the Operators Association. Just wanted to give you some information tonight about the status of the negotiations that we're doing right now, as we want to make sure that you're all aware of exactly where we're coming from and how we've got to this point. I've got a letter, but I'm not going to go ahead and just read it this time. I'm just going to hit the high points. It's a little easier than trying to...
Is that the letter you submitted to us?
Yes.
All the board has received the letter, so we all have it.
Okay, great. Basically, there's just 2 points. The first being about the reason that we're still doing the negotiations, and it's really basically just that the whole thing started out on kind of a bad footing as far as we're concerned, where we were told right off the bat that it wasn't any matter of money at all, really, that the district considers that we are already overpaid as far as what operators in this area are getting. We were then giving a salary survey that we looked at, and with the numbers that it had on it, sure enough, it had us as the top paid operators in this whole area. So we had to go ahead and take all those numbers, and through all the hard work of my associate, he went out and went through every single one of the districts in here to get the MOUs, the job descriptions, and the salaries so that we could actually make a real comparison based on what these people do in their jobs compared to ours. Because in our industry, a lot of these districts, they don't use the same names for the positions. It's like we have here for our trainees, we call them OITs, operators in training. Another district will just call that an operator. And when he gets done with his training, they'll call him a senior operator then. So it was important to actually go through and see what the certifications that were required, what they had to do, what their daily job duties were, and then compare it apples to apples with what we do here. Because the whole point of the salary survey is whether the district can recruit and then retain the best operators that you can get. Which kind of brings us to the second point here. This district, I've been in this industry for 27 years now. I've worked at plants on the East Coast and here in California. And I can say without a doubt that this is one of the most challenging water districts to work in. The amount of different pressure zones, tanks, reservoirs, facilities that you have, you need the best of the best to run this place efficiently. And now the district's even looking into making what would be kind of like a super operator position that is going to be able to do everything in the whole district instead of splitting it up the way it is now with facilities and distribution in one group and the regular operators running the water plant TP2. So it's just difficult to understand how once we did the salary survey, it showed that we're actually in the median right now, and that by the time this contract runs out, we would be at the bottom. And you're not going to be able to keep the best operators if you're one of the lowest paid districts in the whole Bay Area. That, on top of the fact that the most recent CPI was 4.2%. So with what we were offered right now, you're looking at basically a 3% pay cut. Because if we're only getting 1% and inflation is 4%, you know, you're asking these guys to lose money. So we're like really confused at how we got to this point. The other thing that's frustrating is the fact that we haven't received a counteroffer from the district since October, which is why we had to finally declare impasse. It's like we made offers and then came back and tweaked it, made another offer and another, and we just were getting nothing back. Basically forcing us to negotiate against ourselves without ever getting any feedback in the form of an official counteroffer. That last offer that we got in October, we had a vote and had 100% no vote from all of our membership. We have a really small association, but they're all ready for this fight if we have to. The last proposal that we put out is very reasonable. We're only talking about a 2% total difference from what we've already agreed to with all the tentative agreements and where we want to be. So I'm hoping that if you look at all of this and realize the time and money and effort that it's going to take to go through mediation, arbitration, fact-finding, we just think that it's important that you all realize just we're willing to be reasonable. We accepted the major changes that were made to the health care plan, the retirement health system, the new retirement that you have for the new employees coming up was really difficult, but we even accepted that. So we just don't understand what all of us have looked at and seen that it seems like there's a level of disrespect to what these guys do. It's like you've got the best of the best working for you here, and you need it. And at this point, it's become a matter of principle for all the operators. It's like we know that we have put a reasonable offer on the table, and we're going to fight for it. That's all that I have for you tonight, and thanks for the time. And thank you for all you guys for showing up. I know it's tough after 12-hour shifts. So, thank you.
Thank you. And just once again, for the record, we all have the letter. It's with you. So, Ramos, do you...
Good evening, board members, everybody. I hope everybody had a nice holiday.
Nice to see you.
I did. I was going through some papers, and I come across this letter to the editor. And it says, California has been asked to bear sufficient... This is regarding a tax that the government or of California want to put a tax on water, drinking water, I guess. And it says California has been asked to bear significant increases over the past decade as drought and other supply issues have driven costs to records high. As rate hearings in the community and elsewhere, ratepayers in our region have made it clear that they are carrying a heavy load. Then it goes on to say that the Tri-Cities was proposed a tax of $8 to each monthly bill. And I couldn't help but look at who wrote it, because it's a long letter. I just took it from, that part, and it says Paul Sethy, board president of Alameda County Water District. I says, where's he at?
Right here.
Yeah, well, sometimes, you wonder if this is you. Anyway, I'm not going to, I just wanted to bring that as a point that, you know, two people here, I've always asked for, you know, raises and in our water rates and so forth and so on. And it just got to me, I says, where's he at?
I was defending you. Where's your difference?
Yes, you're not defending us when you say we want 100% raise in our water rates or 100% in the service rate. You know, that's extreme. I'm sure, but the thing is that I don't think you're for us, and this says you're for us. Well, why can't you argue the same argument you had to the state here? But anyway, it's just an argument that could go on and around. PG&E some time ago put smart meters on everybody. Well, not too long ago, I got a letter from PG&E, and it says that you are now using, I think it was 8%, I don't remember the exact number, 8% more power than anybody in your neighborhood, 1 mile radius. And I says, well, you talk about, you know, keeping an eye on things. It was supposed to be just so we could keep an eye on our, you know, how we were using it, not to let everybody else know what we're using. And now the water company wants to put a meter on our water to, like my wife says, what? They're gonna rate our every time we flush our toilet? You know, every time we take a drink of water? That's what it would come down to. I said, no, it don't. I says, it's the same thing that PG&E has done, the water company wants to do. They can get our bill faster, they can know where the water is being used the most, and maybe they can do something about water efficiency. And she says, yeah, we'll be getting a letter from them too, huh? You know. And then there was a comment made the last time I was at the special board meeting for the rates and so forth, and they were saying, someone on the board says, after all, we're selling water, you know, it's like you're selling hamburgers or something. And I thought, that stuck to me, and as I was going home, and I says, no, Mr. Sethy once said, he was driving through Newark and he saw the brown lawns, and if you don't put water on it, it dies. And I says, so you're not selling water, you're selling life. And that's what you're charging us for. You want to stay alive? You pay the price. Otherwise, go buy the water from El Alhambra or somebody. And I just wanted to make that point that, you know, sometimes we make off-the-cuff comments, and it doesn't ring true, you know, to other people. And it's not right that you just say, well, we're just selling water, so we'll charge what we want. Anyway, thank you for listening. Good night.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for speaking. Any further public comments? Talk again. And with that, move on to the consent calendar.
Recommendation is not to add 5.5.
Okay, do we have a recommendation to add any items to the consent calendar? And I've been told we're requesting not to add 5.5.
All right, then I will make the motion to add items 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, and 5.6 to the consent calendar, please.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Secretary, call the roll.
Directors Huang? Aye. Akbari?
Aye.
Sethi?
Aye.
Weed?
Aye.
And Gunther.
Aye.
I'll make the motion to adopt the consent calendar as amended.
I'll second.
A motion second. Secretary, call the roll.
Directors Huang? Aye. Akbari?
Aye.
Sethi?
Aye.
Weed?
Aye.
And Gunther.
Aye. Okay, we'll then move on with item 5.5.
Thank you, President Gunther. This involves a resolution authorizing exchange of easement with the City of Fremont and will be presented by Manager of Engineering and Technology Services, Ed Stevenson.
Can I make a quick comment before we start here? I commented on this item at the Fremont City Council meeting on 2 occasions. And to that end, if there is an appearance of a conflict of interest, I have no property interest in it, but I did speak in reference to the situation and wondering if I should be recusing myself from this issue.
So,
I spoke as an individual.
right, and so the reason you would have a legal conflict is if you have a financial interest in the item before you, or if you own property within 500
I do
feet
not.
of the area, that would constitute a legal conflict where you would have to recuse yourself. Otherwise, you might have a common law conflict of interest, and that's a decision that you would need to make as to whether you should recuse yourself just based on your own individual views on this and your ability to make look at this from the district's perspective.
Okay. And I guess I may go to the issue, but one of the requests was that the city reconsider the actions that they had taken earlier based on input that was provided by staff after the close of public comment in the first round. So I have a request of the city to revisit their actions that they took on the boundaries of the land that they were going to be accessing. And that may or may not impact this easement. So, in an abundance of caution, why don't I recuse myself from this item and call back in when we, at the end of the session. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, Mr. President and Board. Resolution authorizing exchange of easement with the City of Fremont, and the summary is District Easement Number 294 was granted by the City of Fremont on October 7, 1975 for district groundwater recharge operations in Grau and Snell, formerly known as Gorman Ponds, within the Niles Community Park in Fremont. District and city staff have jointly prepared a revised and updated legal description describing the easement area, which was adjusted to account for the district's current and future groundwater recharge operations in Grau and Snell Ponds. On December 19, 2018, the city granted a new replacement easement to the district, which includes the same substantive terms and conditions as easement number 294, but is based upon the updated easement area. With the new replacement easement in place, the existing easement number 294 is no longer required and may be vacated and quitclaimed to the city to complete an exchange of these easements. Board approval of this item will help meet the district's strategic plan goal number 2.1, maintain and enhance sustainability and reliability of local and regional water supplies. Staff's recommendation is to, by motion, adopt a resolution authorizing the exchange of the district's easement with the City of Fremont. And I'd be happy to address any questions.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So has the city addressed all our needs in terms of this easement exchange?
Yeah, we've had a number of good, productive discussions with the city that culminated in this final arrangement. Essentially, we are getting the same rights that we have now over a larger area. We had some discussion here a few months ago about this situation and how it relates to the City of Fremont's plans to sell some properties nearby. And during those discussions, there was some issues with overlapping easements and with the property area that the city was planning to sell off and rezone, and there were some other land use actions. And that's all been resolved now, and so with this action, we extend our easement rights over a larger area, and it's consistent with our current and future groundwater recharge operations in that area. So yeah, It's a good outcome for the district.
Thank you.
Further? Mr.
I just have a short comment. I did take one trip out there quite some months ago with Director Weed just to survey the property site and everything. And then I went there on another occasion by myself. I disagree with the city's disposition of this property and the manner that they're doing it, because I think that it should be incorporated into the park property that's there in that Niles community. So I do not support the City of Fremont, whether it's Planning Commission or City Council, disposition of the property and the nature that they're doing it. But I do not have any problem with the issues here with the Water District. So I just wanted to make the comment, and if anybody has a chance, it's a very beautiful area to go and walk.
Okay. Second the comment on beautiful area.
Motion.
Okay, we have a motion for the staff recommendation.
I'll make the motion to move to staff recommendation.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second motion, Secretary, please call the roll.
Directors Huang,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Gunther.
Aye. Move on to 5.7 when Director Weed gets back in. Try. Take out AMI.
Go for it.
I know. Okay, Director Weed is back in the room. Item 5.7.
Thank you, President Gunther. Items 5.7 and 5.8 are both related to each other, but we'll be attacking 5.7 first, involving a resolution adopting the Alameda County Water District Retiree Welfare Benefits Plan and related actions. And this item will be presented by our Human Resources and Risk Manager, Jennifer Solito.
Thank you. So item 5.7 recommends adoption of the new Alameda County Water District Retiree Welfare Benefits Plan and related actions and documents in order to implement that plan. As background, the board approved changes to the Retiree Health Benefits Plan for unrepresented management, confidential, and professional, or MCP employees in June 2018 and approved the same changes for represented OE3 union employees following the successful conclusion of negotiations in September 2018. In summary, the new plan provides a defined contribution retiree health plan in replacement of the current defined benefit retiree health plan. This new plan structure provides competitive retiree health benefits to employees while also providing the district a more predictable and financially sustainable benefit structure, since under the plan, retiree health benefit costs are fixed and are not exposed to market volatility and not subject to the significant increases we've seen in defined benefit cost plan over the years. For employees, the benefit is attractive as they earn the benefit shortly after their initial hire, specifically following their probation or trial period. Employees have discretion over how to invest the funds in the same manner as their current deferred compensation benefit options, and they have access to the funds upon separation, meaning they don't have to stay with the district until they retire in order to earn and access the benefit. Additionally, the funds are tax-free when they go in and tax-free when they come out. And should an employee pass away, the benefits are available to the surviving spouse and dependents. So the defined contribution benefit plan arrangement functions as follows. For MCP and OE3 employees hired on or after January 1st, 2019, the district will make contributions into an account established for each eligible participant. Contributions are set at $1,200 annually for service time past probation for OE3 employees and past the initial trial period for MCP employees until 5 years of service. The contribution increases to $3,000 annually from 5 years of service up to 11 years, and then to $2,400 annually from 11 years ongoing. Additionally, current OE3 and MCP employees may elect to irrevocably waive their right to their current defined benefit plan and opt into this defined contribution plan. For employees who opt in, they will be considered to have been hired as of January 1, 2019 for purposes of benefit eligibility and contribution calculations. Additionally, staff recommends that these contributions be increased by $25 per year per active employee in order to cover the annual account administration fee, which is charged directly to each participant and not to the district. In order to administer this new retiree welfare benefits plan, staff recommends that ICMA Retirement Corporation, also known as ICMA-RC, be selected as the third-party plan administrator. ICMA-RC is currently the administrator of the district's deferred compensation plan and has done so with good customer service and offers low-cost investment fund options and administers similar RHSA plans for other public agencies. So the recommendations before your board today are as follows. 1, to adopt a resolution authorizing the general manager to execute the declaration of trust of the Alameda County Water District Integral Part Trust, the Alameda County Water District Retiree Welfare Benefits Plan, and the Vantage Care Retiree Health Savings Adoption Agreement. Next, to approve ICMA Retirement Corporation as the third-party plan administrator for the Retiree Welfare Benefits Plan. Also, to approve an additional annual contribution to each active employee participant's account in an amount not to exceed $25 per year for the annual administration fee. And lastly, to perform any other related actions that may be required to implement the plan, including processing various implementation forms and service agreements. Any questions?
None. Any public comment? No? Further comments from the board? None?
No.
Secretary, please call the roll.
I'll make staff
Oh, we need a
recommendations.
staff recommendation. Yeah, true.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Directors Huang,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Gunther.
Aye. And I think we're to 7.8 now.
We're at item 5.8,
5.8.
and again, this will be covered by Ms. Salido as well.
So 5.8 relates to the item just approved. 5.7, the item recommends that the board establish a new committee titled the Alameda County Water District Retiree Welfare Benefits Plan Committee in order to oversee the administration and management of the new retiree welfare benefits plan. The district currently utilizes a similar committee oversight structure for its deferred compensation retirement plans. The function of these committees, or this committee, is to ensure that the third-party plan administrator, in this case that would be ICMA-RC for both the deferred compensation plan and the retiree welfare plan just approved, follows the district's agreed upon services agreements. The committee also makes investment option decisions, evaluates and recommends participant education activities, and performs other oversight functions. Staff recommends that the membership of the proposed new committee be the same as the Deferred Compensation Committee, which is specifically the incumbents in the following positions: the General Manager, the Manager of Finance, Supervising Financial Analyst, HR and Risk Manager, and the HR Analyst. So the recommendation before your board today on this item is to adopt a resolution establishing the ACWD Retiree Welfare Benefits Plan Committee. Any questions?
Comments?
No comments.
Comments? No comments? We have a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendation on item 5.8.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion second.
Directors Huang,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Gunther.
Aye. I think we're at item 5.9.
That would be correct. 5.9 involves authorization of professional services agreement for the Water Efficiency Master Plan and Water Conservation Tracking Database. And Laura Heides, our Manager of Water Resources, will lead us through this discussion.
Thanks, Mr. Shaver. In summary, for this item, as part of the district's efforts to ensure water supply reliability for its customers, the district is initiating development of a water efficiency master plan. The plan will be the first step in the district's multi-year effort to update its water supply master plan, the Integrated Resources Plan. The Water Efficiency Master Plan will drive the district's water efficiency program for the next 20 to 25 years, meeting water use efficiency objectives through the state's implementation of Executive Order B3716, making water conservation a California way of life, and tie in with the district's advanced metering infrastructure project. There is adequate funding in the budget for this expenditure. The project was reviewed with the Water Resources and Conservation Committee on December 17, 2018. Board authorization of this project will assist the district in achieving Strategic Goal 2.3, evaluate new and innovative water management concepts. And we have up here the timeline from the water supply goal area of the strategic plan, just as a reminder it's shown there as the WEMP, the Water Efficiency Master Plan, up there toward the top that we've been working toward and hope to complete toward the end of 2019. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. And with that, the recommendation is, by motion, authorize the general manager to execute a professional services agreement with Madaus Water Management, Inc., one, to develop a water efficiency master plan for an amount not to exceed $176,720, and two, to exercise an option to proceed with development of a water conservation tracking database for an amount not to exceed $103,330 for a contract total not to exceed $280,050. And with that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Board comments?
I have one question.
Director Sethy?
Ms. Heides, can you tell us, kind of in specifics, what the tracking database what is the information that it will provide us with?
Well, my understanding is that over the years we've tracked a lot of our different conservation programs, and we would like to get it all in one place. And so creating a database like this will allow us to do that, and also to look at long-term tracking all of our programs going forward. So that's the level of detail I can share. If you have more detail than that, I will.
So that's tracking programs. What about tracking parcel sites on water conservation?
That is a very good and detailed question, and I'm thankful to have Stephanie Nevins, our technical expert, here to help me out. I'm going to ask her to go ahead and come to the podium and share what she knows about the database.
I'm specifically concerned about the outdoor water usage on parcels, which is where we can create the most savings.
So this, the proposed water conservation tracking database would link up with with GIS, so where we have area measurements for landscaping. What we want to do is, so we have all these programs tracked through various, we have the water budget program that uses GIS and Access and Excel, and we have other programs tracked like toilet rebates in Excel files, and we have other things in Access files. We want to get it all into one relational database so that we can look up a customer and we can see what they've participated in. We can see how many people and how much savings we've achieved through all the different participation in different programs. So it would be something we could query really easily to get information quickly, because right now everything's separated and it's challenging to really see the big picture and what's been going on with conservation. So.
Can you search by APN number, the assessor's parcel number?
Well, so we have that data, so we can link it in to, we want to get everything that we have access to and link it into this particular database for a customer. So I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we have that available, so we can do that. And we're actually working on something right now with Bosca, where we are kind of doing, it's like a mini data pull for a study where we are pulling in APN data and linking it with accounts and looking at what customers have participated in.
Great.
Right.
I wish you success.
Director Weed?
Now, the words plan and database would imply that this is not a fixed document. It's one that will be developed over time, and you have some flexibility in how you implement it and expand and collect. I find it ironic that the water efficiency legislation is for indoor water use and gives guidelines of down to 50 gallons per day per person, actually requirements with potential penalties of 50 gallons per day per person by 2030, starting at 55, 52 and a half, and 50. And it may well be that by exclusion of how much water is used outside will determine how much water is being used internally. So there. Second, I would encourage you to look at what's becoming our most common area of development and highest population new, which are the master metered apartments and homeowners associations, and that we look into how we can develop better monitoring of that and hopefully a better rate structure where we can bill the residents for their water use and the homeowner association for the fixed use. And we could do that potentially independent of any of our other structures. So there's potential here, there's great, and the data will be helpful. Okay, thank you.
Further comments? Comments from the public? No? Hearing no further comments, can we get a motion for the recommendation?
I'll make the motion.
I can second that.
Motion and second. Secretary, call the roll, please.
Directors Huang,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Gunther.
Aye. On item 510.
510, again, will be presented by Ms. Heides, involving a resolution adopting findings as responsible agency for the final environmental impact report for the water supply contract extension with the Department of Water Resources and approving the water supply contract extension.
Thank you, Mr. Shaver, and apologize for the location change, but we've got a presentation for you tonight. So tonight, the board is being asked to consider several actions related to approving an extension to the long-term water supply contract for the district's state water project supply. As you know, under the terms of the current contract, the Department of Water Resources provides water service to the district and other state water contractors from the state water project in exchange for payments that will recoup all costs associated with providing this water service over the life of the state water project. This water service is critical to meeting the district's mission and continuing to pursue strategic goal 2.2, protect existing imported water supplies. In addition to the staff report in your board packet, you also received an email with a copy of a preliminary execution version of the contract language and links to the relevant CEQA-related documents, including final EIR and exhibits, as well as the DWR resolution certifying the final EIR and approving the extension. Staff has prepared a presentation on this item that I will share, and I'd also like to acknowledge the significant work in preparing for today's item by both Stephen Inn and Evan Buckland. So, to kick it off, I will talk about the purpose of the contract extension, which is to extend the term of the 29 water supply contracts all the way to 2085. The current contracts are set to expire between 2035 and 2042. And extending the contract will ensure continued service from the State Water Project, and it will also improve financial and accounting provisions that are currently in the contract. The need for the contract extension, as you may know, the State Water Project capital costs are primarily funded through the issuance of State Water Project revenue bonds. DWR is currently limited to selling bonds with maturity dates that extend only to 2035 rather than the customary practice of selling 30-year bonds. And shorter repayment period increases annual repayment costs to the contractors. So this has been a long process to get to the point we're at today. During May 2013 to June 2014, the contractors and DWR held public negotiation sessions and arrived at an agreement in principle for the contract extension amendment, and Steve Peterson participated as well in that process at that time, so I wanted to acknowledge that. And ACWD's board, you may remember, adopted this agreement in principle back in September 2014. And the agreement in principle provided for extending all the contract expiration dates to December 31st, 2085, and also to the changes to the financial provisions in the contracts. Key items in the contract extension include changing the term from 2035 to 2085, also transitioning to a pay-as-you-go billing system to better align the revenues and expenditures, making contract administration less complicated. It has a number of improved financial and accounting provisions. And one of the things that I think the contractors are quite excited about is the creation of a new joint finance committee. And this would be comprised of Department of Water Resources staff as well as state water project contractor representatives, and the committee will provide recommendations to the director on the financial policies of the state water project. So that's a seat at the table that we're happy to have. The approval process for the contract extension includes a number of steps. DWR is the lead agency under CEQA to address possible environmental impacts associated with the contract extension amendments. And the draft environmental impact report was released on August 17th, 2016. The final EIR was released November 16th, 2018. Those boxes have been checked. And there were a couple of informational legislative hearings under Water Code 147.5 section. And the information was presented at the Senate Natural Resources and Water Committee July 3rd this year, and the Joint Legislative Budget Committee September 11th of this year. This topic was reviewed with the ACWD Water Resources and Conservation Committee in both August and December this year, as we are approaching the decision to approve the contract. And most recently, the director of DWR approved the water supply contract extension on December 11th, 2018. DWR has incorporated the contract extension amendment into ACWD's contract language, and at this point we're getting ready to make the next step of considering making CEQA findings and approving the water supply contract extension. One thing that we did just learn today that I did want to be sure to share with you is that we received some notification that some entities have indicated that they intend to file some kind of a CEQA action against the contract extension, which was not unexpected. So we did have an opportunity to talk with the State Water Contractor Council as well about that and confirm that. And also we'll be learning more about that in the coming weeks, but did want to let you know about that as we're considering this tonight. So with that,
and that does not change
right, and that does not change the staff recommendation that we're still making here, as you can see, and that is by motion adopt a resolution considering the Department of Water Resources final environmental impact report for the water supply contract extension, and in the district's limited role as responsible agency, adopting findings for the water supply contract extension final environmental impact report, and 2, alternatively, finding that the water supply contract extension is not a project, and if it is a project, that it is exempt from CEQA, and 3, approving the water supply contract extension and authorizing the general manager to execute the contract extension. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'd like to go first.
Director Weed?
Director Sethy, you go first for a
Okay.
change. That'll be fine.
Okay. I've got 3 areas to cover.
Okay.
So, do we know who the parties are that are taking legal action here in this situation?
I believe it's a number of environmental and fishery-related groups.
This question is related to my second question, too.
Yes. Yeah, there's the North Coast Rivers Alliance, Institute for Fisheries Resources, Pacific Coast Federation of Fishermen's Association, San Francisco Crab Boat Owners Association, and the Winnemem Wintu Tribe is the one that I've got here.
All right. So, the comment that I'd like to make is that for both the Delta Conveyance Design and Construction Authority and the Delta Conveyance Finance Authority, it's critical that we get these contract extensions done. The same noted parties that you just mentioned are the ones filing legal actions against both the DC Delta Conveyance Design and Construction, Delta Conveyance Finance Authority too. So they're trying to put a monkey wrench in the process here across the board, and I think it's very important that we get these contract extensions in place by all the contractors so that we can pursue what we want to do in the Delta. And then I was curious about the new finance, I don't know what to call it. You had it on
The
previous
new
slide.
Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee. So if
Yes.
we have a voice at the table with DWR, does this allow us to have input on their budget, on specific projects?
That's a good question, and I don't, off the top of my head, know all the details of how the committee is set up, but I know it would be on financial policies, whether or not it's specific, project items, whether it would funnel through that committee or just more financial management of the project. I think it's more on the financial management end. But that's something, if you wanted to know some details, I could get
So
back
this
to you.
is the financial management of the state water project? Do you think that they may be able to entertain budgeting for money for like the South Bay Aqueduct?
I don't know if it would be specific budget allocations. That I don't know. I would imagine, I don't want to speculate on that. I think it's more the financial management and the financial policies, but I could get back to you on
Well,
the
wouldn't
details.
that fall under operations and maintenance of the SBA?
It would. It would, but I think this committee is not really geared towards operations and maintenance and making those kinds of maintenance decisions. I think it's more on the financial end.
And who's our...
Excuse me, could I just help out a little bit here? So there is DWR has a process for dealing with maintenance and capital repairs, and so it would go through their Department of Engineering, and then a recommendation, there'd be a report, a study, a recommendation would be made, then it would be approved, it would be costed out, and then at that point it would transfer over to the new Finance Committee for consideration.
So, who's our representative from the district right now? Is it you?
No, I believe it's Stephen N. and Laura Heides.
I've been to only one meeting so far, so.
Okay. So from among the 29 contractors, there will be a smaller subset that will be part of that finance committee, or
I would imagine
just one representative?
That I don't know. I'm sorry, I didn't look up all those details. It's an 88-page contract, so
Okay.
I didn't memorize them all.
I'm looking forward to an update down the road, because it would be interesting to see where we can leverage things with that finance committee.
Okay, great.
Director Weed?
Yes, the fundamental principle that beneficiary pays remains in the contract language.
Yes.
When I was a bit surprised to see this show up on our agenda for tonight, and it just came this last week, and we had not discussed it in any of the committees. And what startled me most was the extension of the date from 2032 for almost over 50 years further down the road. I'd been thinking over the years that in 2032, coming up to 2032, we'd have the ability to sit down and negotiate with DWR and have them maybe take us a little more seriously on some of our concerns, particularly as they relate to the South Bay Aqueduct. On the big picture, we're only about 1%. So we pay 1% of the Bay Delta. But the South Bay Aqueduct, we're a much bigger player. And there, I think, my personal feeling, I think that there's some support for that, is that the South Bay Aqueduct contractors have been given a lower class or short shrift when in comparison to some of the bigger issues that the DWR is facing with the Bay Delta, and particularly the challenges they have with the California Aqueduct due to subsidence and other issues to the really big payers in the system. A number of years ago, we started raising concerns about the South Bay Aqueduct, which is now at the end of its service life, about 50 years. and getting DWR to pay attention to it. They've done a series of evaluations, but never, and when they finish one evaluation, they go into the next evaluation for a number of years. At one point, there was serious discussion, and I would encourage us to reconsider, since the South Bay Aqueduct is now paid for, that we set up a separate joint power authority to take over the South Bay Aqueduct contractors, to take it away from DWR and operate it as a group. Alternately, that the retrofit of the South Bay Aqueduct be part of the California water fix, putting us up with the same level of interest and support of DWR as a Delta plant. Specific issues and concerns that came up have been, for example, the Del Val Reservoir. We had a proposal for $100 million from the state under Prop 1 money. DWR wouldn't even return our phone calls. They wouldn't even discuss the issue with us. And when the owner of the property won't talk to you. There's a lease with East Bay Regional Park District that expires in 2024. The extension of that lease is something that hopefully we can discuss as South Bay Aqueduct contractors. Access to a South Bay Aqueduct as it was designed and built, particularly with the active storage component of the Del Val Reservoir, would eliminate the need for hundreds of millions of dollars in other projects we've looked at, including recycled water in this district. It would save every one of our ratepayers thousands of dollars. Dyer Reservoir. We could not reach our basic water quality standards this last year because of toxic algae. There's been no real effort on their part to make the engineering designs to be able to eliminate the buildup of toxic algae, particularly at Dyer. We had the Vallecedis Channel, which arguably should be part of the South Bay Aqueduct responsibilities, not ACWD. The great risk at Ohlone College in particular in Mission San Jose, because you have an earthquake fault crosses the South Bay Aqueduct immediately above a large child care center. Each of these issues, and the other utilities that are congregate at that spot. So we have some issues. I'd been patiently waiting for the 2030s to come, that we could come up to a point where the circumstances might give us an opportunity to discuss some of these basic issues for us. But now it's slipping through, and we're going to kick it down the road for 50 years. It's important for the state that we have a Bay Delta solution. Fully supportive of that. I'll be supporting the motion tonight, but I would encourage us and the South Bay Aqueduct contractors to get together and push even harder than we have. A letter went out about a year ago asking them to pay attention to it, and they may have acknowledged it, but we're still waiting.
So, Director Weed, we did receive an email expressing the concerns that you're expressing this evening. I know that Ms. Heides has been asking about what the status of the South Bay Aqueduct evaluation is. Do we have any new information about that?
Yes, I do. And what I can tell you is, sorry, I have lots of tabs today, is that we did send a letter early, I think, February 2018, and there was a meeting to discuss the need to do all of the reliability work. And so DWR set up a two-phase inspection of the SBA, and they carried out with this what they call a smart ball, which I think is a ball that goes through the aqueduct and looks at things. And the first phase was done in April 2018 with a draft report that came out last summer that we took a look at. And then the second phase was just done most recently in October 2018. And the draft report hasn't yet been released, but we expect hopefully to hear more about that soon. So they are taking a close look at the aqueduct and identifying locations and projects that do need to be done.
I believe this is at least the third conditional assessment that they've made in the last 15 years. So let's hope we get some results. Thank you.
And then I also wanted to mention that we're scheduling a follow-up meeting from the meeting that was happened at the Aqua Conference between the three general managers of the three South Bay Aqueduct agencies to talk both about the condition of the South Bay Aqueduct as well as another issue, which is the sort of wheeling of water through the South Bay Aqueduct, because with the introduction of Los Vaqueros reservoir expansion, that could become an issue. Right now, the three South Bay Aqueduct contractors essentially play nice together, but there's no real formal agreements. We use each other's capacity in the South Bay Aqueduct, depending on when the agencies need water. But if we were going to be sort of using the aqueduct to transfer water for a third party, so to speak, not part of the South Bay Aqueduct family, then we would need to tighten up what those issues are and what potentially user fees would be charged to agencies that are getting benefit out of the infrastructure, and that could be beneficial to ACWD and the other two contractors.
And I'll add one more item to my wish list, and that is an extension of the South Bay Aqueduct, whoever manages it, directly to the quarries, so we can have direct recharge without having to worry about Alameda, and get us the heck out of Alameda Creek for some of the operations, so we can do the uptakes higher up. Thank you.
President Gunther, just a couple more comments. I was going to say I'm generally supportive of the interests or areas of interest that Director Weed just mentioned, except for the last bullet. So, but I did want to note something, you know, because I'm kind of a little bit of a historian for the district, that as I was thinking about all of this, we're about to approve something very historic. I would call it monumental in a way, because it's something that will be remembered for decades to come by ACWD as an organization, by its board, its staff. This comes around once in a lifetime, and it was only at the birth of the three cities in the southern Alameda County, Newark, Union City, Fremont, that we started looking with former Governor Pat Brown at creation of the State Water Project, and then acquisition of water via the South Bay Aqueduct over here. And it's important to remember for our community, I think, that we were state water contractor number one of the 29 contractors. We were the first to sign the agreement. It was former General Manager Matt Whitfield up there, former Mayor, Council Member Mayor Gene Rhodes, who was also District Attorney, General Counsel here, former founder of Fremont Bank, and our General Counsel also partners with Gene Rhodes, Morris Hyman. It was chiefly Hyman and Rhodes that were close to former Governor Pat Brown politically, and were able to attract General Motors down here because they were going to give them access to Hetch Hetchy water, pure water. That brought GM, instead of going to Richmond and San Leandro, down to Fremont, and we were the first to have water from the Delta here in the Bay Area. And so that agreement was signed in I believe August of 1962 up in Sacramento, and there was a press conference held with former Governor Pat Brown. And we go back to that document often, that historic document. We reference it, we read it. It's important legally to the constituents of our area, and I've read it over, quite a few times myself. And so here we are, so many years later, commemorating really the forefathers of our district, the vision that they had for our Tri-City community. And now we're looking at a 50-year extension out into the future, where people beyond our time are going to look back and say, how thankful they were that our board, our district acted in the right manner in this time to extend ourselves. So I just want to put a little bit of a historical reference point on this. It's not a small matter, in my opinion.
I might add a vignette on that. As I understand, we had not seen the final document as a district until they came to the signing ceremony, at which point then Morris Hyman, the attorney, noted that he had not read the document. Kept Mr. Banks and others who were waiting for a couple hours while he sat in a side room and read through the document before allowing the district to sign it. So
he said, I'm not going to allow the board president to sign this until I've read the whole thing through, and the governor can wait.
Hey, Director Akbari?
Great presentation. I would also be interested in learning what the composition will be for the new Finance Committee and what role ACWD can play on that committee. My question is there any way to kind of estimate what the financial impact would be if this contract extension were to get significantly delayed and DWR would have to put out some more shorter-term revenue bonds?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I know that it will continue to get more and more expensive, and costs will escalate as we approach 2035. I could ask around if there's a sort of cost estimate if you're interested.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Yeah,
And
I think you would look at their annual capital budget and take 1% of that, because they'd become a pay-go situation. So we'll get you the whole board, what that figure would be, and you would see that it can be pretty significant.
And is there any timeline for trying to get this contract extension done, especially given some of the delays that might come up?
Right, so they are encouraging the contractors to get this approved at their various boards, this month, next month, and hopefully move things forward. There is always the possibility of the litigation, but and the contract, our understanding is that the contract terms wouldn't actually go into place until either litigation is resolved or a certain number of contractors have all agreed to move forward with things anyway. So, it's several months or years out before the actual transition would occur, and I think they're talking, more towards 2022, 2025, because there's going to be a transition period with some of the financial changes that are being made.
Thank you.
So just a couple questions, and actually one is the same clarification I asked at the committee meeting. We did discuss this item in a committee, and it's more of a clarification that this is for the existing contract. It has nothing to do with the California water fix. I think that should be very clear.
Right, and so this is, go ahead. It is to extend the contract, our current contract, and we need that regardless of what happens with the water fix.
Right. So the water fix will come back to us when appropriate as a separate item.
There's a separate amendment, I believe, for the water fix as well.
So this is just pertaining to what we have right now. I just want to make that clear in the record because there's some confusion.
Yeah,
even in the media.
Even if the water fix, say, doesn't happen, we need this.
Right. And this extension, we definitely need, with or without the water fix, will have potential cost savings for us as a district. Even just purely from the ability for DWR to float a longer-term bond at a lower interest rate.
Director Huang, I would just say I support your comments, but this is very critical to a California water fix in terms of whether we get financing and construction off the ground. So they're independent. I agree with you.
Yes, I just want to make that clear.
And
because
if the latter fails, we still want the former.
Right.
But it is critical to...
I think the clarification I am trying to draw is that there were some confusion, I think, in the state when they had a hearing about this particular contract extension. It is only for the existing contract.
The issue that is going on with the Delta Conveyance Finance Authority is that people on Wall Street will not offer the financing for the California water fix unless they have a long-term
And
outlook.
I think that would be appropriate discussion when we talk about the water fix. For tonight, I just want to focus on this contract because I do not want feelings on the water fix to distract us on this contract extension because we do need it. There's a cost saving for us. It's definitely something that this district is committed to because it is a large portion of our water supply. So
I'm supporting your comments. I was just trying to add to it.
yeah, no, I just want to make the record clear because there are confusions out there in our community. I want to make sure the record is clear. Okay. So I guess my question, I'm looping back to the potential litigation. What happens if this litigation dragged out and our contract expires?
Oh, hopefully it wouldn't drag out that long. And that's where I think that you know, either it gets resolved and things move into place, or it doesn't get resolved and drags out, but the contractors at some point make a decision or enough people sign on that it goes into place, and some of these things can continue. Like as an example of the Monterey Amendment, that the contract eventually went into place, and you know, litigation will continue to drag on.
Okay. No, I just want to make sure, since it is a very important water supply to us, that we understand the implications of potential litigation and have a plan B in place if we need it. Thank you.
Okay. I just have kind of an editorial comment. If my understanding is correct, we're kind of acting tonight on what we agreed upon back in 2014, correct?
Correct.
So it's about 5 years. Not too bad. We wonder why we can't get anything done. We're trying to, now this is a big thing. We're talking 2085. Now, with the exception probably one director tonight, most of us probably aren't going to be here in 2085 unless there are some major developments in science that are certainly going to need water. So this is significant that we're taking action on something that we will probably not see the end of. Now, hopefully, the next amendment won't take that long, or we're going to be out to 300 years. I think it was Governor Brown. I missed the meeting when he did it, and he said that CEQA has been hijacked by organizations and people that want to stop things. The comment was made about the Twin Tunnel Project, Delta Conveyance. Is it ironic that the same organizations that are deathly trying to sue to stop that are suing to stop this? Nothing more than an extension of an existing contract that's vital to the state water, including our water. And I think it is important to the public to understand this is vital to us. We've taken our action. It's 5 years later. That's sad. I understand, yes, it's big. It's 2085, and you know we want to take our efforts. We knew 5 years ago. We were ready to sign on the dotted line, and even by taking this action tonight, we're still not ready, or we still don't know if we got it. So I support it, obviously. I supported it in 2014. I hope, if necessary, I will support it in 2035. I'm not even sure I'll be here in 2035, and I mean literally here. So it's sad when we have to discuss things like this. But that's reality in today's life.
Clarification, if I might. This action tonight makes 2035 irrelevant?
So they'll have to...
If it gets approved.
Yes, I mean, our contract would be extended all the way to 2085. You know, the current contract and the current financial setup is all through 2035, so there'll have to be a transition period where they change that all to set everything towards an end date of 2085.
Hopefully some of my ideas can come up in those negotiations, be raised in those negotiations. Well, thank you.
I'll keep my comments there. I've probably said enough already. We have a staff recommendation. Can we get a motion, please? Mr. Ramos, do you have any comments, too? Good.
I'll make a motion to
All right.
approve staff recommendation.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
We have a second. Secretary, please call the roll.
Directors Huang,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Gunther.
Aye. Moving on. 5.11.
That is correct. So 5.11 involves the authorization of amendment to professional service agreement for the advanced metering infrastructure project, and is essentially bringing back to the board the information that was covered in the previous workshop on that subject, and asking for board authorization to do the next step in the AMI project. And presenting that will be Mr. Stevenson.
Okay, thank you. The Advanced Metering Infrastructure Project will implement AMI technology throughout the district's service area. The district plans to implement the project in 3 phases over 5 fiscal years. Consulting and engineering services are required in Phase 2 to assist the district in procuring an AMI system that meets the district's business and operational needs and technical requirements identified in the project's design study as developed during Phase 1. There is adequate funding in the current fiscal year project budget for this expenditure. This project and the need for this work were most recently reviewed with the full board at the December 6, 2018 board workshop. Board authorization of this amendment will help meet numerous district strategic plan goals, including 1.4, invest in system improvements to increase customer water use efficiency and engagement, and 5.2, enhance customer outreach and engagement with new tools. And beyond that, I don't have a lot more to present, given that this was a major topic of discussion at the December 6th board workshop on this topic. But I'd be happy to address any questions that the board has.
Director Weed.
I have some rhetorical comments, but not necessarily, and maybe rhetorical questions as well. So when we go through them, I can see if there are questions first.
I just simply want to thank the staff for having postponed this item until we had a proper workshop to explore everything, and that workshop was, I think, really valuable for all of us. So I'm happy to support this at this current time because I really felt insecure in supporting it when it was first proposed for the agenda.
Director Weed.
Okay. I will not be supporting the motion, but let's start off with a variety of reasons. I'm thankful for the last workshop we had. The consultant came in and made us some presentations, and I thought there were some errors in his presentation. They've suggested that they could do the payback time in less than 10 years, in part based on conservation of 5%. The reality is, if we had 5% conservation, or any conservation lengthens the payback time in this district because of our rate structure. It doesn't shorten it. And to get a 5% payback, let's assume 5% of the of our customers actually looked at their cell phone to read their water meter, and they in turn had 5% conservation. That would be 0.25, 1/20th. But I think it's irrelevant because conservation doesn't help us. What would help us, and was conspicuous by its absence, was a 5% increase in revenue if you went to ultrasonic meters. They have failed to address that. They have proposed that we do both the network and the meters concurrently as a single issuance. They're separate. And they should be treated as separate issues. The technology is developing on a separate timeline, and actually you need to determine the network first, and that may have the longest timeline depending on what methodologies we use. If the district is still looking at doing its own ACWD district-owned facilities and network telecommunications, that could take an extended period of time. The technology is rapidly advancing on the meters. So to make a decision on meters at this point is really foolish. I think it fails on every other level. It's going to be at least, assuming $40 million is the number that was thrown out, plus interest if we borrow money. So you're at least $500 per customer, and maybe something closer to approaching $1,000 per customer. And what do they get? They get the ability to read the meter on their cell phone. We did a pilot project. 400 of our, quote, neediest customers. Not a single one of those customers was interested in maintaining the data and is collecting it today. If there was somebody that's interested, we have shown that we could give them that information on an individual basis, subscription basis, or give it to them for free and save yourself $40 million. The proposed savings on manpower, which is the bulk of it, could be achieved by decoupling the meter reading from the billing. Start billing monthly now. People seem to like that, particularly electronic billing. And rather than reading the meters every 2 months, read them every 3, 4, 6 months, particularly for residential users where the pattern is remarkably consistent year-round. You'd get all those cost savings without having to spend $40 million. That we can chase leading-edge technology as best we can. We've had experience after experience in this district of making some very unfortunate decisions on technology. Whether it be the polybutylene or the service lines that we had to replace, $30 million into ultrafiltration, which nothing to show for it at the end, and we had to do a $13 million write-off on our assets because it failed. We've now EMI. It goes on. So I would think that this is one, as I said before, I summed it up in a single word, it's premature. But you cannot support it in any of the studies that have been done to date, and the consultant we have brought in has had some major flaws in their logic and presentation to date. They did make two really good comments when they first came to us. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should, and the technology is going to turn over every 3 years. And you're making a 20-year commitment on technology that will be outdated within years, if not months. So, thank you.
Make the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendation. There's no other public comments or anything.
Public comments? No? Motion has been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Further comments? Hearing none. Secretary, please call the roll.
Directors Huang,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
No.
Gunther.
Aye. Moving on, item number 5.12.
Thank you, President Gunther. Items 5.12 and 5.13 both pertain to the Rubber Dam number 1 Alameda County Drop Structure Fishway project, and 5.12 involves awarding the contract for construction of that facility as well as other related facilities, including the Shin Pond Fish Screens construction project. And again, this will be presented by Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you. The Rubber Dam number 1, Alameda County Drop Structure Fishway, RD1 Control Building Modifications, and Shin Pond Fish Screens, collectively the project, are components of the Lower Alameda Creek Fish Passage Improvement Project. The project includes construction of a new fishway, a new Shin Pond Fish Screens facility to replace the existing unscreened diversions, dam foundation modifications, and upgrades to the existing Rubber Dam number 1 control building and mechanical and control equipment. Bids to perform the work were recently received, opened, and evaluated. The low bid contained one minor irregularity which may be waived. The contract documents were structured with a base bid for the major construction items listed above, and a separate bid schedule for contingency items of work related to additional excavation dewatering, which would be added to the contract by change order if required in order to complete the work. There is adequate funding in the capital improvement program for this expenditure, and the project is partially funded through multiple grants. This item was reviewed with the Water Resources and Conservation Committee on December 17, 2018. Board approval of this item will help meet the district's strategic plan goal 2.1, maintain and enhance sustainability and reliability of local and regional water supplies. And so this is indeed the long-awaited major construction effort that's been in various stages of planning and design and permitting for over 20 years. This project has been developed cooperatively with our partner agency, the Alameda County Flood Control and Water Conservation District, and has received the support of numerous resource agencies and stakeholders, and to name just a few: the United States Bureau of Reclamation, National Marine Fisheries Service, National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, Wildlife Conservation Board, Natural Resources Agency, Coastal Commission, and many others. This is really 3 projects in one major construction contract. It's the fishway or the fish ladder over the district's rubber dam number 1 and the county's concrete drop structure in Alameda Creek. It also includes improvements to the district's rubber dam number 1, the control building, the control systems, and the operating systems of the dam. And lastly, it's construction of a new screened water diversion facility from Alameda Creek to Shin Pond for further rediversion into the remaining groundwater recharge areas that we operate. It will also complete all of the screening required on all of our diversions along Alameda Creek. The project will not only provide environmental improvements by removing the last remaining major fish migration barrier in lower Alameda Creek, but also, and of critical importance to the district, will help to protect the long-term reliability of the district's local water supplies by helping to ensure reliable groundwater recharge operations and the sustainability of the Niles Cone groundwater basin. The various fish passage projects within lower Alameda Creek have been awarded numerous grants totaling nearly $18 million, with over $10 million in grant funding allocated to this particular construction project. And I'll note that staff continues to aggressively pursue other grant and external funding opportunities. Lastly, I just wanted to make note of 2 contractual matters. One is that staff has been working diligently to prepare and negotiate additional contracts and contract amendments for services and district furnished materials that would be brought before the board later, including the next item on the agenda, which relates to construction management services for this project, which was just mentioned. And I wanted to note that staff's recommendation this evening is to award to the low bidder and to also authorize the general manager to execute change orders to include the contingency items in the bid if determined necessary based upon field, which would be included in the contract if determined necessary based upon field conditions. The contingency items relate to excavation dewatering activities that are above and beyond the levels described in the base bid. Staff's assessment is that such additional dewatering may be necessary, and the contractor's preliminary construction schedule indicates that these activities would commence shortly after construction begins. Authorizing the general manager to execute these change orders would minimize delays in construction resulting from the need to secure additional board authority to include these items into the contract when they're needed. So staff's recommendation is, by motion, 1, waive the minor irregularity in the Flatiron West Incorporated bid. 2, adopt a resolution awarding the contract for the rubber dam number 1, Alameda County Drop Structure Fishway, RD1 Control Building Modifications and Shin Pond Fish Screens Construction Project to Flatiron West Incorporated in the amount of $36,757,000. And 3, authorize the general manager to execute change orders in a total amount not to exceed $3 million as required to implement the contingency items of work as identified in Payment Item Schedule D in the contract. Jobs 21006 and 21012 and 21019. And I'd be happy to address questions.
No questions, no comments here.
Victor,
I'll be abstaining on this item, and it's fairly simple. I share the opinion of some now retired senior members of our staff that rubber dam number 1 is surplus to our requirements. We can operate on rubber dam number 3. And I suspect in future years it'll go the route of Mission San Jose Water Treatment Plant and simply not be put into use. It'll be there for contingency needs if possible. But the board has approved this on each steps of the way. We're about to spend $25 million to $30 million. Or if we do push use to operate it, we'll have to release even more water for this and the bigger problem, which is the drop structure known as the Bart Weir. But once again, I'm on the short end of this vote. Thank you.
Akbari, no comments? Having no comments, Mr. Comments? Okay, Secretary, call the roll.
I'll move staff recommendation.
Second.
Directors Huang,
Aye.
Akbari, Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Abstain.
and Gunther.
Aye. Moving on, item 513.
Thank you. 513, authorization of construction management and testing services for the same project suite, and that will be presented by Mr. Stevenson as well.
Okay. Construction of the rubber dam number 1, Alameda County Drop Structure Fishway, RD1 control building modifications and Shin Pond fish screens, collectively the project, is anticipated to begin in May 2019, with a requirement for all in-channel construction to be completed by October 31, 2021. To help ensure compliance with contract and regulatory permit requirements, construction management, construction inspection and monitoring, and testing services are required. There is adequate funding in the capital improvement program for this expenditure. The scope and need for construction management and testing services were reviewed with the Water Resources and Conservation Committee on December 17, 2018. Board award of this contract will help meet the district's strategic plan goal 2.1, maintain and enhance sustainability and reliability of local and regional water supplies. So, of course, this item is obviously to provide for construction management services for the 3-year project that the board has just awarded. As you know, it's a very significant and complex project involving multiple agencies and stakeholders, interface with the public, and the daily operations of 3 other public agencies. That's Flood Control, East Bay Parks, and BART, plus the Union Pacific Railroad. CM Services selection team here for this project included our partner agency, the Alameda County Flood Control and Water Conservation District. And just as a reminder, similar to the construction project, the costs for these CM services, construction management services, are also to be allocated between the district and the flood control district in accordance with the existing agreement that we have with the county. So staff's recommendation is by motion, authorize the general manager to execute a professional services agreement with Anchor CM in an amount not to exceed $3,435,025 for construction management services for the rubber dam number 1, Alameda County Drop Structure Fishway, RD1 control building modifications, and Shin Pond Fish Greens construction project, jobs 21006, 21012, and 21019. And again, I'd be happy to address any questions.
Comments?
No comments.
I would say that I had chosen to abstain when a no vote may have been even more appropriate, but this has gone through the normal process. It's been approved by everyone. It's just one I do not wish to be associated.
All right, with that, I will move staff recommendation.
Second.
Directors Huang,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Abstain.
and Gunther.
Aye. That concludes the agenda item, the action calendar, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct.
But we have reports.
There are a number of board committee reports in your agenda packet, and staff has no additional information that we were planning on sharing, but we stand ready to respond to any questions you may have.
I would just like a rainfall update if there is one.
Okay, in operational reports, item 6.2.1, rainfall report. I am absolutely certain that Ms. Heides is ready for this question.
Stephen told me to be prepared. So to date, we have had about 6.38 inches of rain, and I believe there is more on the way coming. So that's where we are. And I think, Gina, I think there's a graphic in the folder. It's just an updated graphic through today's day.
I saw most of the Bay Area is around 70-75% of normal.
Right, and we're just below the sort of our average year trajectory on our chart. I think is in there.
Yeah, we've gotten away from calling any precipitation normal. We call it average.
Right.
Yeah. Because I don't think there is a normal.
70-75% of
Average.
Newspapers say normal.
Yeah, they're not on board.
Right.
They're
And
in
I know
denial.
I'm probably asking a premature question because I saw that we might have slight rain for the next week, every day. Coming up.
Yes, and I apologize that it's not in the folder. I must have SharePointed something incorrectly.
But I wanted to add a question, which I'll probably bring up at Future Water Resources Committee now that I'm on that, back on that again, which is we measure the rainfall right here, kind of at the center of our Tri-City area.
Yes.
And I'm wondering whether it might be as important to measure the rainfall throughout the Alameda Creek watershed itself.
So
Because I know there's a number of monitoring stations throughout the watershed.
there are a number of monitoring stations that are used by a variety of different agencies throughout the watershed, and we also actually, I believe if they're still there, have a couple of our own rain gauges in the watershed in areas to alert us to rain that's on the way. So that will impact our creek operation.
When Director Weed and I were on the Region 5 two-day event over at Zone 7 in the fall, they were showcasing how they monitor all the rain in the watershed from the different monitoring stations. And since the Alameda Creek is the exodus for the entire watershed, I was wondering if that might be, interesting data to look at. We could map it out.
And
So I'm not asking for an answer here. I'm just
Okay, yeah, if you'd like to.
raising an idea.
We do also have access to data in the watershed, and as Ms. Heides indicated, we use that for our operations. But I believe that the particular location that we report on is the one that we have the most historical information. So, to give context, that's the one we use for the absolute rainfall.
Right.
But as they say, it's a 600 square mile watershed. Your results may vary.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll be happy to cover how we operate in a committee.
I have one comment on the Finance Committee. Is this the time?
Yeah, sure.
The Finance Committee at each month, we're given a copy of the budget and the financial reports. And I noted that in the last month, the staff had made a significant change in our reserves allocations. We had a rate stabilization fund, which a month ago was at $31 million. I call it a budget uncertainty reserve because of the dysfunctional rate structure. There's no way to predict where our revenues are going to be versus expenses. That's been dropped to $9 million, a $21 million reduction. Was a suggestion that the staged rates that would be adopted with the current 218 would give us some degree. That's not a position that I am in agreement with. I would encourage us to maintain the rate stabilization fund until we have a little more experience with with how this might apply. That staged rates are based on a water supply emergency. And to paraphrase James Carville from the Clinton campaign, it's the revenues, stupid, not the water supply that determines what our budget and finances are going to be. So we'll see, but I am afraid that I will encourage us to it allowed us to put more money into capital construction programs, potentially including AMI, and reduce the amount of borrowing money. But I think it puts us in a more vulnerable position financially without that large reserve. If we go into a drought and we see another $60+ million shortfall over a 3-year period of time. Because I don't think stage rates, the water emergency may not be the case. I can see us being given a Jimmy Buffett approach of it's 5 o'clock somewhere, but that drought may not be here, and the water supply problem may not be ours. Thank you.
Further comments? I do have one comment I would like to bring up, is the hardness report, again, is quite nice. I commend the staff for doing what they have. The highest number I'm looking at, I think, is 154. Looks like down the street from me. But one of the things I wanted to make this comment for is that it has been much higher, as we all know, and there have been comments in the protest about the water quality. And I just want to publicly say thank you to the staff. I do watch this. I think I'm number one still. I do trade that occasionally with Director Huang.
We are on par this time.
Well, there is another 154 in there, but so maybe you have two number ones on the board this evening. But I'm satisfied with the quality of my water. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I believe we have additional staff reports?
We have no other operational reports unless there's questions. We have no staff presentations, and I do have a couple of general manager report items.
I do believe we have Director Sethy's going to report out.
General manager's report.
Yeah.
So I put an item on the agenda, thank you President Gunther, to kind of review the game plan leading up and including the public hearing that's scheduled on February 7th. I wanted to remind the board that we have 2 community meetings planned. Meeting number 1 is January 16th at the Ardenwood Elementary School. Meeting number 2 is January 30th at the Los Cerritos Community Center, which we have used before in the past. The idea is to get out and about in the community, maybe get to more of the northern part of the service area, so if customers are interested in learning more about the district, maybe we're more accessible that way. I did want to ask the directors if anybody was planning on attending the meetings, because it does make a little bit of a difference in terms of how we plan, because if it looks like there's a chance there'll be 3 directors, we'll set it up as a special board meeting so that we comply with the Brown Act. So January 16th, 6:30 to 8:30, January 30th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And if you're not sure, our assumption is the directors have always been very responsive to these community meetings. We'll just go ahead and plan it as a special board meeting. So that's fine.
I hope to attend.
Go ahead, John.
Both.
I will likely be at both.
I will likely be at the 31st.
The 30th.
30th.
Sorry, 30th. That's what I meant.
I plan to attend both.
Okay.
I will only be able to make the first one. I have a conflict on the second.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to say thank you for holding a meeting in Ardenwood, being from that area. North Fremont really appreciate the opportunity.
We love all of our customers. We want to give them an opportunity to come see us should they want to.
We love our minimum.
So these meetings are going to be a little different than what we've done in the past. The format will be sort of open house style. So there'll be separate informational booths. And for example, they'll kind of be organized by department. Engineering will have some information about the fish program, the main renewal program, AMI, finance, help on, I believe that the finance booth will be the most popular, given that most folks that attend will likely be interested in rates and financial planning. So we'll have plenty of help on TAP applications. We'll have posters on budget and brief, stage rates. We're working on a poster to try to explain that, the rates proposal, as well as we want to encourage our customers to use the electronic automatic bill paying system, so we'll be promoting that. OGM, general information about ACWD, and some of our public outreach programs. Operations will be talking about what we do in the distribution maintenance division, water quality monitoring, and then customers will be able to find out when their local mains will likely be cleaned as part of the cleaning flushing program. In water resources, we'll have posters on the groundwater basin, the watershed, and our desal facility. So about a half hour into the meeting, the plan is I will give a short 15-minute presentation, because now that I know there'll be special board meetings, we have to have a public comments section. So we'll use the Q&A, that's the plan, after the short presentation to also take public comments. And we will also have many copies of our Prop 218 notices present in case somebody says, hey, I didn't receive one of these, or it didn't make it through the mail. So that's the plan for the community meetings, to promote it where it's on the Prop 218 notice. We're using our website, social media, Tri-City Voice, and the patches. For the public hearing, we plan on using the same approach, essentially, that we did 2 years ago. We don't think that there'll be the same level of interest as there was 2 years ago, but we're going to play it safe and assume that there is. That means managing the boardroom capacity, having overflow areas in the lobby, as well as even outside if we need that. We'll have plenty of ACWD-friendly faces available to help people understand how they should comment, filling out speaker cards, doing those things. Security-wise, not going to get into any details, but it's going to be the same approach we used last time. And I've made a template for our board president to assist him managing the public hearing. And what I was interested in hearing from you this evening is if there was anything that you can recall from last time that you think we can improve on or wasn't optimum from your perspective, then we're interested in that feedback so that we can, continuously improve how we handle these sometimes challenging public hearing meetings. And if there's nothing about that this evening, if you think about something, go ahead and call me or send an email. So that's that. I'll pause and see if there's any feedback. Does this generally sound okay?
Are we going to have, I don't know if this is legal, but I know the protests on the internet seems to be pretty straightforward, and certainly I think could be put on one page. Would we have a blank protest form available at the, I mean, if somebody, it's not that hard to protest, but, you know, I mean, we're not all internet savvy.
Right.
And
So,
come to the meeting.
so we're obviously accepting protest forms. We received our first one in the mail that I'm aware of today. Thank you, President Gunther, for providing that. So the idea is the speaker cards themselves can be used as the protest.
Okay.
So if somebody wants to speak or just submit a card, and they'll say that they want to speak or they don't want to speak, so that also has a double, sort of a double use. And then folks that come and submit a speaker card, we'll take care of all of them first. You don't need to speak, you don't need to submit a speaker card to speak to the board and present your concerns, but without a written something, it won't count as a written protest. And that's based on state law. So that's the plan on how to handle that. Any other questions, concerns, comments?
Well, a quick point, I know that the legislation requires written protests. We have extended that to take electronic protests, so some districts truly require something in writing, is my understanding.
ACWD is the only water district that I am aware of that allows electronic protests.
Right. So, which is positive, and it was well received by the grand jury when they looked at our process.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments, questions on this?
Actually, this is more a comment on our website. I was just trolling, so maybe we want to highlight the water rate increase and the public meeting a little bit more. It's on the bottom of the page.
Okay. That's, yeah. We'll do our best.
Oh, and the second recommendation is, if I recall memory searching right a while back when we had the public meeting at the community meeting at the library, we were having overflow issues, and I would suggest that I have not been to Ardenwood. I know Cerritos has a lot of room, so just make sure that we have a good flow pattern, especially if you want to have it as a poster session and stations. Make sure that we got the traffic flow worked out, just so that everybody who took the time, our community member who took the time to come talk to us, would have a chance instead of being stuck in traffic, for lack of a better word. Okay?
So in terms of dealing with parking, we've got those issues sorted out. We also have already done a floor plan on where the stations would be set up and how that would work. Shireen has been to the sites herself. So I think we got that in mind.
Okay, just make sure you have appropriate staff person to guide the flow. I've been to public meetings. I have held poster sessions where the popular station have the same group of people, and they just ask questions all night long, and nobody else could have access to that poster.
Right.
So make sure we have the right traffic management in place. Perhaps a little bit encouragement saying, you know,
There's
write
other
down your
stations,
question,
you
there's
can go
another
there.
station, just to make sure everybody who took the time to come see us has a chance.
And I think we learned something at the DSAL open house.
Okay.
People were tending to stack up at the first poster session, the first station there. So thank you. Okay. One other item for you that I wanted to make the board aware of. It's not on the agenda, but it is late breaking news. Receiving some media coverage. San Francisco PUC is suing the state board. It's happening in Tuolumne County Superior Court, and it involves the Bay Delta plan that was approved by the state board on December 12th. BOSCA is evaluating this now and has notified our representative as well as the staff representatives of that fact. So things are going to get interesting. With that, that concludes my general manager's reports for the evening.
Move on then to director's comments or agenda items. We can start with Director Sethy, as he has a report.
Our general counsel, I think, has...
You might just check, because you had the rate hearing process on the agenda, you might just check with the member of the public if he had any comments that he wanted to add on that item. Okay.
Oh, okay.
They want to get it
Thank
in
you,
this
sir.
week or this month instead of next?
Here.
Okay, then we'll go start with Director Sethy. You have a report, then we'll move on to
Yeah,
requests.
my report is very brief, because the last Delta Conveyance Finance Authority meeting was very brief. The major things that were discussed were in private session. One was an evaluation of the interim executive director and whether to approve him as permanent executive director and what the compensation might be. So that will come up at the forthcoming meeting, which is this Thursday, the 17th in Sacramento. And there was some follow-up discussion about prospective lawsuits that are being filed as well. So that was it. And on January 17th, I believe Mr. Wunderlich is going to be going up there as well.
That, I think he's back, or is that going to be handled by you and Stephen?
I know that Stephen and I are planning to be there because we'll be there for the other state water contractors meetings, and we haven't checked yet if John will be coming as well, but
Yeah.
we may be covering it.
Yeah, I'm actually, I believe I'm safe on my own, but it's good to have somebody up there. They're trying to schedule all three meetings in the same day, the state water contractors in early morning, followed by the Delta Conveyance Finance Authority, followed after lunch by the Delta Conveyance Design and Construction Authority. So I probably will attend the Design and Construction Authority after as well, in the afternoon. So that's all I have to report there. I would also like to add
Mr. Wunderlich's calendar indicates that he will be back and is attending.
okay. I don't know if it's absolutely necessary, but
Well,
let's look at the agenda on Tuesday at the finance meeting.
Thank you for the flexibility. If Laura and Stephen need to be there anyway, they can
Yeah.
be prepared to. It allows us to get more done here back at headquarters.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Great, thank you.
So I just wanted to provide a supplementary report on the Alameda County Special Districts Association meeting, which we hosted here at the Water District yesterday. It's about 4 years ago that we last hosted the meeting here at our district.
May 2005. 15.
Yeah.
May 2000.
4 years ago. So we hosted it here yesterday. We had a room, our back room, full for the folks that arrived, and we met between the 7 and 10 o'clock hour in the morning. And it was a full agenda. It was, I thought, an excellent meeting. As is customary, the general manager for each location or somebody notable from that organization gives a presentation, and Bob gave the presentation yesterday, and it was very well received. I've received some email comments today from folks. Director Weed was there as well. And in particular, folks from, board members from East Bay Regional Parks District, the other recreational districts, Hayward, Livermore. Everybody was really interested in the fish portion of our presentation, what we're doing on Alameda Creek. And I got some feedback after the meeting that people were really surprised at what the level of commitment was from our water district over 20 years. We had one gentleman who was a board member of the Hayward Area Recreational District, who's also a member of Alameda Creek Alliance, who complimented us on all the work we've done over 20 years. But the other part of the commitment was the commitment from our ratepayers, that the extent of the work is about $80 million on the creek for all the fish ladders, the fish ladders and fish screens and other associated work. And of that, we're responsible for about 55 million, right?
In round numbers, yeah.
Then we have the county coming in, and we've got grant money. So it's not only a commitment on the part of all the staff and the hard work that goes into it, it's a commitment from our ratepayers. Every one of us is paying in our water bill for all the work that we're doing in the creek. And I think that as we've had the protests coming in, you know, I have been reading, I think I've read nearly all of them, but people don't understand quite clearly why we're in the creek. And I think that's part of our education process, to explain why is it so critical that we work on these projects, why have we made this 20-year commitment, and we're going to continue that commitment for decades to come in terms of supporting these efforts. So I didn't take a count of how many people were there, but Gina, you had a roll call, but it was a full room, you know.
There were 20 people from outside agencies.
20 people? Okay. But it was a good representation of a cross-section of districts, board members, and general managers. So I just wanted to compliment the staff and everybody for everything you put into organizing that. It was great. Yeah. And like I told Mr. Shaver yesterday, every time I hear a presentation, I'm learning. I was really learning in that room yesterday from, you know, about what we're doing. Something new every time. That's it for me.
Director comments, agenda items.
Well, I do have a note that I'll be in Sacramento also on January 17th for the Federal Affairs Committee meeting, and then have to come back for the Bosca meeting that night in San Mateo. But there is also a Federal Affairs Committee meeting in Washington, D.C. at the end of February. And I generally wait for the board approval, which was not on this agenda, will hopefully be on the February, before making reservations. So absent objections, I will make reservations. Thank you.
Further comments? I will declare the meeting, I should wait 2 minutes, but I will declare the meeting adjourned.